I've built a career on spotting patterns before they become problems, risk assessments, behavioral red flags, threat forecasting. I'm the guy big corporations call when they want to know what might blow up before it does. But I didn't see it coming from inside my own damn house. The moment that cracked everything open came in the form of a Bulls game. Not in person, on TV. I hadn't even planned to watch, but my buddy Joel texted me during the third quarter. Bro, pretty sure I just saw Dana on the kiss cam? I didn't think anything of it at first. I figured it was a prank. Joel knew Dana was out of town that weekend for a corporate wellness summit in St. Louis. She'd left Friday morning, suitcase packed, itinerary printed. But I pulled up the game on YouTube anyway. Recorded stream, third quarter, kiss cam segment. A few goofy couples, one awkward brother-sister pair, and then her. Dana, laughing, blushing, turning her face as some guy leaned in and kissed her cheek. The video was grainy, the lighting weird, but I'd recognize her anywhere. Her laugh, her hair, even the way she shrugged her shoulder when she laughed too hard. The man's face was mostly turned away, partially blocked by a fan sign. Whoever he wasn't a stranger. At first, I felt like I'd taken a punch to the gut. But denial's a hell of a thing. Maybe it was someone who looked like her. Maybe it was an old clip from another game. Maybe it really was some random stunt, like they do for corporate events. I kept telling myself all that right up until she came home Sunday night and I asked, casually, "How was St. Louis?" She dropped her purse by the door, already scrolling her phone. "Exhausting," she said, not looking up. 2 back-to-back sessions on workplace resilience and an overnight layover. "I'm dead. You get any deep dish while you were there?" I asked. She furrowed her brow. "What? Chicago-style pizza? That's a St. Louis trip." I just smiled. "Thought maybe you rerouted for a little fun." That's when she finally looked at me. Really looked. Her body went still for a beat too long. Then she shook her head like I was being silly. "You're weird." Weird. Not, "What are you talking about?" Or, "No idea what you mean." Just that slippery, brush-it-off tone that made my gut tighten. Dana and I had been married 11 years. Long enough to learn each other's rhythms. She worked in corporate wellness, stress reduction, ergonomic assessments, mindfulness seminars for overpaid managers. Not exactly glamorous, but she liked the independence and flexibility. Lately, though, there'd been changes. More travel than usual. More team-building retreats and client intensives that always popped up last minute. New outfits, new perfume. A yoga retreat in Sedona that ran long by 2 days with no explanation. I noticed it, but I hadn't let myself really see it. Now, I couldn't unsee it. That night, after she fell asleep, I pulled up her travel receipts. She'd once shared access to her flight account on a shared Google Calendar and apparently hadn't removed it. One click and I had her past month's itineraries. No flight to St. Louis this weekend. No hotel booking. No conference registration. Just one booking for a boutique downtown Chicago hotel on Friday night. Paid with a corporate card tied to Kate's Regional Wellness Partners. I stared at the name. Kate's. It rang a bell. Dana had mentioned a Brian Cates before. New VP of sales at a firm she'd recently contracted with. A little too charismatic, if I remembered her description right. A total golden retriever energy guy. Apparently the golden retriever had a suite downtown. The next day, I didn't say anything. That part might sound strange, but when you work in risk mitigation, you don't act on instinct. You collect. You observe. You isolate variables. Dana was all smiles Monday morning. Made coffee, kissed me on the cheek, even packed me a lunch, which she hadn't done in months. I studied her like I would a case file. Micro-expressions. Timing. Mismatch between words and behavior. It was all there. Later that day, I looped in a friend from IT at my company. Told him I had a weird feeling about Dana's corporate contact and wanted to make sure her digital footprint wasn't exposing our systems. Technically a stretch, but enough to justify a look into shared devices. He checked our home router logs for me. Dana's phone had connected to our network Saturday night, while she was supposedly in St. Louis. It was all unraveling. Still, part of me kept looking for any explanation that wasn't what it clearly was. So I called her sister, Becca. We weren't especially close, but cordial enough. "Hey, just checking in," I said. "Dana mentioned your mom's surgery went okay?" Becca paused. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago, but she's doing well. Dana and Brian stopped by the hospital, actually. Brought her flowers. There it was. She said it so casually. "Brian?" I asked. Becca caught herself. Oh yeah? That guy from her client team. Thought you knew. They've been working a lot together. I didn't push. Just thanked her and hung up. Then I sat in the car for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, engine idling. That night, I watched the kiss cam video again. Over and over. I paused on Dana's face, her expression. She looked happy, carefree, not like someone being caught off guard. More like someone caught in a moment she didn't think would ever be seen. And in that moment, I realized something awful. It wasn't the kiss. It wasn't the lie. It was that smile. The kind she hadn't given me in a long, long time. When she came to bed that night, she curled against me like nothing was wrong. I kept my breathing steady, didn't flinch, didn't turn away. But I wasn't there. Not anymore. Somewhere in my mind, a switch had flipped. The data was in. The analysis complete. Something was coming. She just didn't know it yet. I didn't confront her. Not right away. That's what most people expect, right? That the moment you know, you go nuclear. Shouting. Accusing. Demanding answers. But I've worked too many corporate fraud cases to play it like that. You don't walk into the middle of a breach waving a red flag. You watch. You log. You wait for the moment when the person thinks they've gotten away with it. That's when they're exposed. So that's what I did. Dana went about her days as if nothing had changed. She'd hum while folding laundry, leave little reminders stuck to the fridge, book her retreats with confident, breezy updates about hotel spa menus and breathwork intensives. It almost made me sick. The casualness of it. The way she still used our joint account for gas or smoothies or whatever, like it wasn't already over in her mind. I started a new folder on a password-protected drive. Labeled it simply, DM Logs. Everything went in there, screenshots of her calendar changes, timestamps of when her phone connected to our home Wi-Fi, hotel receipts pulled from our shared credit card statements. Then I got more specific. I started tracing Brian Cates. Brian was VP of sales for a regional distribution company. Mid-40s, married, 2 kids. Clean-looking guy with that fake humble sales energy. Lots of hey brother and wide-open handshakes. His LinkedIn said he worked in strategic partnerships, which is corporate speak for schmoozing clients and taking long lunches. I found photos of Dana and Brian at a company event from 6 months ago, standing just a little too close. Her hand on his arm in one, his hand on her lower back in another. I'd been in a few of those pictures too, back when she'd asked me to tag along and network. At the time, I chalked it up to charisma. She always said Brian was a big personality. Now it looked different. Now it looked curated. On a hunch, I started monitoring Dana's work email access from home. She'd long ago set up remote syncing to check in on the road. I couldn't access the messages themselves, but I could see timestamps. One day, while she was supposedly at an all-day retreat in Naperville, I watched her IP location bounce between downtown and Oak Park, back and forth, 3 times in one day. A logistics nightmare for any real corporate retreat. Then came the slip. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. We were visiting her parents' neutral ground. Nothing suspicious. Her mom asked something about Brian, and Dana snapped just a little too quickly. He's not in my life anymore, she blurted, before anyone even suggested he should be. I saw the look her mom gave her. Something between confusion and discomfort. Dana corrected herself instantly. I mean, we don't work together as closely now. Different accounts. Nobody pushed it. But I filed that line away. Not in my life anymore. Which meant, of course, that he had been. I wasn't looking for emotional confirmation anymore. I was looking for a trail. Financial, digital, personal. And I found it on a quiet Wednesday morning, digging through a trash folder on her shared Google Drive. She'd forgotten to delete the backups. It was a spreadsheet, one of those wellness company tracking forms, the kind they use for billing. Except this one had a second tab labeled HR Backup. Inside were contact logs for clients Dana was supposedly working with, and right there, in 3 consecutive entries across multiple weeks, was Brian's company. Different location each time, matching the exact weekends she'd traveled for work. She'd billed for them, sent invoices, paid through our LLC account. But Brian's name appeared on 2 wellness lead signature lines. The same guy she claimed was just a contact. That wasn't wellness coordination. That was co-traveling. That was falsified hours. That was corporate fraud. I contacted my accountant, off the record. Told him I had reason to believe Dana might be exposing our LLC to liability through misreported contracts. He told me, if she's billing fake hours, and she's taking someone else along under business deductions, that's not just divorce ammo. That's IRS territory. I said I wasn't ready to burn it all yet. Just needed to know what could happen if it got out. He gave me a short answer. If this goes wide, she loses her license, her business, and possibly her freedom. The night before everything turned, she made risotto. She lit candles, wore a blouse I hadn't seen in years, said she'd gotten great feedback on a recent client session and wanted to celebrate. I played my part, smiled, toasted, kissed her cheek. But I watched the way her eyes darted when she set her phone down face down, screen dark. I watched how her leg giggled under the table, not nerves. Just the kind of low-burn adrenaline people get when they're about to flee the scene of a long con. It felt like dining with a stranger who had memorized my wife's face. The final piece came by accident. Friday afternoon. I came home early, pretended I had a last-minute work call, and took it from the car in the driveway. Inside, I watched through the cracked hallway door as Dana walked into the bedroom, grabbed her second phone, the one I didn't know existed until now, from inside a boot in the closet. She texted. I caught the screen reflection in the dresser mirror. One more trip, and we're set. Costa Rica is calling. Costa Rica. It made sense, in a sick kind of way. She'd always said she wanted to disconnect someday. Start a wellness compound. I used to laugh it off. Now I realized she wasn't fantasizing. She was planning. That night, I went full lockdown. I pulled our LLC tax records, flagged every co-signed expense that matched her trips, labeled everything, put copies on encrypted drives and locked boxes, changed my passwords, separated our linked accounts, flagged my credit for alerts. Next morning, I scheduled a meeting with a family law attorney. Not to file yet, just to understand my options. The lawyer looked over my notes, leaned back, and said, Mr. Mindel, you're sitting on a bombshell. I nodded. Yeah, I said quietly. She just doesn't know the timer's already started. There's no training for this part. Not in any manual, not in the high-stakes seminars I've led, not in all the case studies I've read on human behavior and crisis de-escalation. There's no clear protocol for what to do when the woman you built your life with is secretly planning to vanish with your money and another man. There's no guide for what to say when the betrayal isn't hypothetical anymore. It's printed in invoices, whispered in hallways, written in text messages you weren't supposed to see. All you can do is breathe. Try not to act. Not yet. I moved through those days in a kind of quiet fugue, smiling when I needed to, showing up for meetings, drinking more coffee than usual, staring a little too long out my office window. The city looked like a different place from up high. Colder, grayer, like it knew. Dana didn't notice a thing. She was full of energy, busy preparing for her next client trip the following weekend, buying new travel bags, looking at Airbnb listings. She had a new phone case that said, "Find your peace." I watched her dance through our house like nothing was wrong, like we were still married in the way that word used to mean something. And I hated her for it. Hated the way she laughed at her own texts, the way she hummed while folding towels, the way she said, "Love you," when heading out the door, just like she always had, only now it felt like mockery. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drag her phone out of her hand and shove it in her face. Say, tell me again about the corporate retreat, Dana. Tell me where Costa Rica fits in your calendar. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I kept playing the game. One night we had dinner with friends. She talked the whole time about breathwork techniques and leadership coaching, dropping buzzwords like mindfulness integration and sustainable intentionality. They lapped it up. No one saw the lie underneath. Afterward, one of them pulled me aside. You're lucky, man. Dana's magnetic. Got that energy people just trust. I forced a smile. Yeah, I said. She's something. When I got home later that week, her suitcase was by the door. Early start tomorrow, she said cheerfully. Heading to Milwaukee for a wellness strategy session. Milwaukee. That was new. You want me to drive you to the train station? I asked. She waved me off. Nah, Brian's going to swing by. He's presenting too. She said it casually, like it wasn't a bomb. I just nodded. Makes sense. My hands were steady, but my stomach felt like it had dropped out of my body. That night, I went down to the basement, where I keep the old file boxes from when we first started our LLC together. Contracts, invoices, licenses. Back when we still thought we were building something for both of us. I sat on the concrete floor for hours, flipping through papers, barely seeing them. Just sitting in it. Grieving, I guess. Not for the marriage, it had already died somewhere I hadn't noticed, but for the man I'd been. The one who used to trust without needing backup plans. The guy who'd build a business with her, not against her. That man was gone. And the man left behind was colder, smarter, and very, very tired. I confronted her 2 nights later. She was unpacking from Milwaukee, pulling out folded yoga gear that still had the boutique tag attached. I stood in the doorway and said her name. Dana. She looked up, surprised at my tone. What's up? You ever going to tell me the truth? Her eyes narrowed. About what? Costa Rica. The burner phone. The fake invoices. Brian. Her mouth opened, then closed. For a moment, her face flickered. Not guilt. Not shock. Just calculation. Like someone scrolling through excuses in real time. I don't know what you think you know, she said carefully. I know enough. I stepped further into the room. I know your retreats are fake. I know you're funneling business funds into joint getaways. I know you're planning to relocate. And I know you've been lying for a long time. She sat on the bed, slowly, put her hands in her lap. So what now? She asked, like this was just a performance review. I haven't decided, I said. But I've documented everything. Your travel logs. The false billing. The texts. All of it. She looked down. It's not what you think. Don't insult me. Silence stretched between us. Then she looked up, eyes sharp. Maybe you shouldn't have been so easy to lie to. It hit like a slap, but I didn't move. Just watched her. Maybe, I said, you shouldn't have built your future on someone else's dime. She stood up then, fast. Angry now. I gave you years of my life, she hissed. I carried us through your burnout, your career change, your depression. And what did I get? A husband who thinks love is showing up with a spreadsheet. My voice was calm. You're mistaking patience for permission. Fuck you, she snapped. You want to play hardball? Fine. Let's talk lawyers. I didn't blink. They're already waiting. She left that night. Said she needed air. I didn't stop her. Didn't ask where she was going. I just locked the door behind her and poured a drink. Sat by the window and watched the lights of the neighborhood flicker off, one by one. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself feel it. Not rage. Not betrayal. Grief. The quiet kind, where you mourn someone who's still alive, but no longer real. She stayed away for 2 days. I don't know where. Probably with him. She came back long enough to grab clothes, exchange more words I don't remember. Then she was gone again. This time for good. I spent that weekend canceling cards, finalizing statements, drafting affidavits. My lawyer filed for separation under grounds of financial misconduct and breach of fiduciary trust within our business entity. It was ugly paperwork, but airtight. I emailed her the filing. She didn't respond. That Monday morning, I stood in our kitchen and looked around. Same walls, same appliances, same damn coffee maker. But everything felt foreign now, like I'd walked into a perfectly staged version of someone else's life. A museum of domestic failure. I called in sick. First time in 3 years. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop. Phase 2. There's a moment in every operation when things shift, when you're no longer reacting, but executing. That moment came for me one quiet Thursday morning. Dana was gone. She hadn't replied to the legal filing. She hadn't returned my lawyer's calls. But her silence wasn't peace. It was strategy. She thought I'd panic. Thought I'd chase. Thought she was still holding the cards. She had no idea the game had changed. I started with the accounts. Back when we launched our LLC, we agreed to keep a clean paper trail. But over the years, she'd taken over more of the day-to-day finances. I let her, stupidly thinking division of labor was the same thing as trust. Now, I went in hard. I froze the business account and flagged it for a forensic audit, an option we'd built in years ago as a mutual safeguard. I wasn't accusing her publicly yet. Just pulling the trigger on a clause she'd signed without thinking twice. Then I shut down our joint cards. Redirected our autopay bills, changed every password to every utility, insurance, and investment platform we shared. The house? That was already mine, refinanced under my name last year during a rate drop she barely glanced at. I'd done it for security. Now it looked like clairvoyance. I moved every physical document, birth certificates, deeds, tax returns, to a storage locker. Changed the lock code. Canceled her access to our Dropbox. Then I made the call. Hi. This is Travis Mindel. I need to report potential financial misconduct involving Kate's regional wellness partners. The voice on the other end belonged to an SEC compliance officer. He listened carefully. Asked if I had documentation. I said I did. Lots. I'm not looking for a witch hunt, I told him. Just don't want to be caught in the blast radius when this blows up. He asked a few more questions. Took down my contact info. then said the most important words of that conversation. "Mr. Mindel, you did the right thing." Next was her company. I contacted their HR director anonymously, sent a packet of billing logs, travel receipts, and internal memos showing clear double-dipping, false hours, reimbursement for vacations disguised as vendor outreach. I didn't expect a response, but the next morning, I got one. Dana had been suspended pending investigation. Brian, too. My attorney filed for temporary spousal support exemption based on financial deception. Attached were copies of fraudulent invoices, expense reports, and signed business statements tying Dana and Brian together professionally, while misusing marital assets. The judge granted it within 48 hours. I watched the confirmation hit my inbox, took a deep breath, let it settle in. Control. I finally had it back. That Friday, Dana showed up at the house. She hadn't called, just arrived with her hair pulled into a high bun, sunglasses still on despite the cloudy sky, and a duffel bag in hand. I opened the door. 5 minutes, I said. She didn't argue. Inside, she dropped the bag on the floor like she still lived there. Like this was some fight we were going to work through. "You made your point," she said flatly. "No," I said. "I made my move." She crossed her arms. "You froze my accounts. You got me suspended. Brian, too. Do you know what you've done?" "Corrected the record," I replied. "Turns out all that mindfulness training didn't include integrity." "You always do this," she snapped. "Turn everything into a fucking audit." "And you always do this," I said. "Assume there won't be consequences." Her voice cracked then, just a little. "I wasn't going to leave you with nothing. I was going to talk to you. After Costa Rica." "Costa Rica isn't happening," I said. She blinked. I let the silence hang. "I sent your invoices to your clients. They weren't happy. One called me, asked if you were mentally unwell." Dana sat down on the armrest of the couch, suddenly small. "You never once asked why," she said. "Why I did it." "Because you wanted to." "No," she said, and her voice finally sounded like it belonged to a human being again. "Because I felt invisible. Because you were always 2 steps ahead, and I was always catching up. Because I needed someone to see me." I looked at her, really looked. For the first time in weeks, maybe months. And I saw it. Not justification. Just a pathetic, sinking sort of honesty. "I see you now," I said. "But it's too late." She didn't argue. She stood, gathered her bag, and paused at the door. "I'll never recover from this," she said quietly. "Neither will I," said. That weekend, her face disappeared from the company website. Brian's too. A week later, I received notice from the SEC. They were opening a formal inquiry. I was told I might be contacted as a cooperating witness. My lawyer told me to sit tight. "You're clean. Stay that way." I started running again. Nothing crazy, just 3 miles at dawn, back when the neighborhood was quiet and the air still smelled like possibility. It cleared my head, burned off the residual anger, gave me something to do with my legs that wasn't pacing the house or kicking furniture. I tore down the whiteboard Dana had used to track her client journeys, repainted the wall, hung up a map instead, a real one, started plotting routes for a road trip I might actually take. One night, about a month after she left, I got a call from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer. "Travis." The voice was female, hesitant. "This is Jess from HR at Dana's company. I probably shouldn't be calling, but I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For doing what no one else had the nerve to. People were scared of her, or Brian, or just too comfortable." I didn't know what to say. Then she said, "I hope you find something better than this." "I already am," I replied. And I meant it. The email came on a Tuesday. Subject line: SEC Inquiry, Confidential Update, Dana Mindel. I opened it without hesitation. I'd been waiting for this. The message confirmed what I'd expected. After a formal review of the evidence, including financial logs, altered invoices, and correspondence with clients, Dana was being referred for further investigation by both the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Illinois Department of Financial Regulation. The language was dry, cold, but to me, it might as well have been fireworks. She wasn't walking away from this. Later that same day, I got a call from her old company's legal team. They needed clarification on a few things in the documentation I'd provided. I answered what I could, keeping everything tight and factual. The HR director, Jess, stayed on the line afterward. Said Dana had filed a wrongful termination claim. Said Brian had ghosted halfway through the review process and hadn't responded to internal calls since his voluntary resignation. "Coward's move," Jess said. Fitting, I replied. Before we hung up, she added, she's not doing well, if you're wondering. I wasn't. 2 weeks passed before I heard from Dana directly. A plain white envelope arrived in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name, Travis. Inside was a single page. No apology. No plea. Just, I know I ruined everything. I've lost everything. I hope someday you'll remember who I was before all this. Not just who I became. I read it once. Folded it back up. Dropped it in a drawer. I didn't need a letter to remember. I remembered too much already. The divorce finalized in late July. No court drama. No stalling tactics. She tried, initially, to contest the asset freeze. Her lawyer pushed for spousal support. Tried to argue unjust financial control. But the evidence was too solid. The judge shut it down in 10 minutes. Everything stayed where I'd put it. The house. The business assets. My pension. All mine. Dana got what she brought into the marriage and nothing more. A used car. A suitcase. A few small accounts her lawyer had managed to save from the fire. She moved into a rental on the edge of town. I didn't ask where. Didn't care. The weirdest part? I didn't feel victorious. There was no movie moment. No loud, swelling music as I walked away with my dignity intact and my enemies vanquished. It just felt quiet. Like the last door in a long hallway had finally clicked shut behind me. My focus shifted. Work picked up again. Clients were calling more. A couple even referred me to new ones after reading the public filings from the SEC. One of them, a small law firm, asked if I give a talk to their staff on internal threat assessment. Funny, right? I agreed. The night before that talk, I was grabbing a drink at the corner bar when someone tapped my shoulder. Travis Mindle? I turned and found myself looking at a familiar face. Ellie Chambers. We'd worked together once years ago, back when she was in private security consulting. She'd moved on to federal compliance. Last I heard, she was with a regulatory task force out of D.C. Now she was standing in front of me in jeans and a leather jacket, sipping a beer like she belonged to this small-town dive bar. You're the talk of the interoffice Slack threads, she said with a grin. Oh, the guy who calmly dismantled a corporate fraud ring from inside his own marriage. You've got fans. I laughed. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel forced. We ended up talking for hours. Not just about Dana. About everything. Life after messes. The weird things betrayal leaves behind. The ways it sharpens you. When the bar closed, we lingered in the parking lot. She nodded toward my truck. Maybe I'll see you in D.C. sometime, she said. Maybe sooner than that, I said. You ever been to Michigan in the fall? She smiled. Depends on the company. Dana disappeared from town a few weeks later. Courtney, her sister, texted me the news. She's gone. Left without a goodbye. Parents are pissed. She didn't even tell them. I didn't ask where Dana had gone. Didn't want to know. Sometimes a clean break is a gift. 6 months later, I stood on the edge of Lake Superior, watching the waves roll in as the cold air bit at my face. Ellie stood beside me, hands in her coat pockets, a scarf tucked under her chin. I get why you came here, she said. It's quiet. Still. After a year like this one, I said, still is good. She didn't reply. Just leaned her shoulder into mine, gently. We stayed like that for a while. Two people who'd seen too much. Who knew what it meant to rebuild. Not to forget, but to move forward anyway. I don't know where Dana is now. I don't know if she's found another Brian, or if she's still trying to talk her way out of the crater she created. All I know is this. She thought she could vanish into someone else's future with my resources, my money, my blind trust. She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought I wouldn't fight back. She was wrong.